Brother can help you plug it in, and if not, I'll come up and help you in just a minute. All right, but I got to finish filming this. Sound good?
I love you.
Yes! Hey, what's up, everybody? So a few weeks ago, I was asked to go do a master class at Colgan High School in Manassas, Virginia. Very, very cool program that they have over there for music technology, and it's really just a very cool music program altogether, but their music technology program specifically under John Mills is a very neat program, and they've got some amazing original music coming out of there, and it's, you know, from songwriters to producers to people who aren't even, that may not even be their focus, but they want to know about it. And it's going to help them with their other areas of artistic vision. So they asked me to come and talk a little bit about what it is that I do when I am coming up with a good mix for audio. You know, the plugins I use, as well as maybe what I do if I have to do a quick mastering job. All right, enjoy. Hey folks, so I get to talk to you guys a couple of weeks ago. And I really had a lot of fun getting to talk to you guys about kind of my method as I'm approaching my way of producing audio and my way of mixing and mastering. And I know that because my screen wasn't working, it was at least frustrating for me. Hopefully it wasn't too frustrating for you. But like I had mentioned, I wanted to make a video to make it up to you and hopefully give a little more visual backup of what it was I was talking about. So it won't be word for word what I told you. So hopefully I'll cover everything that I did, maybe even a little bit more. But I'm going to try to be somewhat structured about how I do this and share with you my approach and what it looks like in my DAW of choice, which is Logic. And again, while there are certain things that are going to be specific to this DAW, there will be things that you can take to other audio workstations as well, whether you use something like, you know, Pro Tools, Audacity, Ableton, Soundtrap, whatever it is, all right? So here we go. All right, so here is my screen. Yes, what my screen actually looks like. And so I have this song that was written by my friend Nathaniel, who sent it to me from out in Colorado. And so what I had done was I went ahead and I basically muted all of the plugins so we could hear it raw, right? And so let me do that really quick here and take those out, and then also my master chain. All right, so like I mentioned before, what Nathaniel was doing was he was taking the song that he wrote, and he just sent me a very raw file of him doing it on his front porch at his house. And so it's him with the vocals and acoustic. So they're not separated. So there's only so much I could do with it. But like I had mentioned, I was excited to see what I could do with such a raw file. And, you know, kind of that challenge of taking something that's pretty rough and making it sound good. And, you know, and see what we could do, that puzzle. And so I took it and remember, the first thing that I like to do that is a good idea to get your all of your different tracks, get them somewhat level, so some aren't really loud, some aren't really quiet, is to do that thing called gain staging, right? And so that's where you want to take every single file, and you want that gain to all be normalized to around the same thing. So like I said, I like to do that to about -12 dB. And that gives you a lot of headroom to work with, so you can, you know, bump some tracks, attenuate or lower some tracks, and then you have a lot more room to work with while you develop what is going to become your master mix. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and just listen to a little bit of the song that he sent me. So it's just his vocal and guitar raw with no effects on it.
up slow, you belong. I am you. Coffee black and the pages turn. Talk is small while you return.
All right, so I'm going to pause it right there. And so that is what it is. Nothing. That's exactly what Nathaniel sent me. Okay? All right, so what I did was I took all of the tracks. He only sent me that one. And then I added stuff. And that is when I would then, when I'm ready to get to the mixing stage, after arranging all of the instruments, that is when I would do the gain staging, where I bring everything to a similar gain level. Okay? And so, so he brought his in, right? And then I decided to keep it pretty minimal as far as the arrangement goes. So I had the vocals and the guitar, and I decided I would add some drums, but not till later. I really wanted to take the time for this arrangement to evolve. You know, it's very quaint, it's very reflective at the beginning, and I felt like getting right into it and having a full arrangement would have really killed the vibe. And so I waited until pretty much the part before the second verse for the drums. But I added bass pretty early, just to add that low end, and kept it very simple to stay out of the way. And then same thing with a cello, and this is before actually hiring a cellist to play. It's just, you know, a soft instrument that I did through MIDI here in the in Logic. And then I decided to add some piano, again, pretty minimal, just to give some nice nice color to it without getting, you know, jazzing up with too many melodies. Because again, I wanted to stay out of his way. And then I topped it off with a couple of pads, like you see here. I have just kind of like a soft string pad, and then a choir pad that I saved until the second chorus. You know, because remember, when you are creating an arrangement for a song, you want to think about the whole thing linearly, where you start with something pretty soft, pretty bare, and you gradually add things. But each section should have something different from everything else. So the first verse is going to be pretty simple, and then maybe in the pre-chorus you add something. In this case, I believe that's when I added the cello. Then the first chorus, I brought in the piano and the first pad, okay? And then I brought in the drums softly on the instrumental before the second verse. Then the second verse comes in and he's singing, so that's the first time you have the drums and the vocals together. And then the chorus, the second time, is where I then brought in the choral pad, so everything was in there. See, so it took me a while to get there, but that keeps things interesting for the whole arrangement. And then if in this song there is not a bridge, if there were, I would consider something new or going way back to something very simple again, to keep the listener interested, and then maybe bring everything back in for the chorus at the very end. Okay? All right, so again, you're always looking for that ebb and flow in the arrangement to keep the listener interested. Okay? You don't want it just everything all the time. It's so big, it's so loud, because then they get fatigued, right? And you also don't want it to be too simple the whole time, because then they get bored. All right, so those are the instruments I brought in. All right, and so let's listen to everything without any effects on it. Okay, so we're going to bring in, so we've got his vocals and his guitar. We're going to bring in the piano, cello, the pads, the bass, and the drums. Now you can hear a little bit of the bass. It's very subtle.
Silence falls, morning comes.
Vocals, guitar, bass.
Wake up slow, you belong.
Now very simple piano and the cello.
Coffee black and pages turn. Talk is small, but you return. And I am here. I am.
Now we're going to add that first string pad.
The journey's long.
A little more piano.
We've traveled so far.
Again, keeping it very simple
Cruise down the sky.
because we want to hear the vocalist above everything.
Talk is cheap.
It's very raw, but that's okay.
What to say? Patterns come and they fade.
All right, and then look right here. We're going to bring subtle drums. I'm just going to tell you the drums aren't perfect because he did not send me a track with a click. Right? Okay, so I'm going to pause right there. Okay? So it's not mixed yet, and that's okay. You probably noticed, whoa, where did his voice go? Wow, the drums are pretty loud. The pad is kind of overbearing, and that's okay for now. This is just what I was doing at the time when I was bringing these instruments in. I was playing the brush kit just with my fingers on the keyboard. It's a MIDI input, and same thing with the green and the blue tracks, right? Oh, and I guess the orange as well. These are all MIDI. And like I said, I like the piano sound here, so I'm actually not going to replace it with a real piano. Sometimes I would. I have a Korg SV1 behind me that I absolutely love. Has one of the best emulated piano sounds I've ever messed with. Sometimes I like to put that in after I come up with the idea on MIDI. But this one, I actually like how it goes, so I'm going to keep that one. Cello, I'm definitely going to get a cellist at some point. And the others I'll probably keep. All right, so now, and you know what, I'll go ahead and I'm going to fast forward here real quick just so you can hear when the choral pad comes in, so you can hear it's even bigger, okay? So let's listen to this. This is kind of the biggest part of the song. Again, it's subtle, but it adds that extra layer. Right, a little more. All right, I'm gonna pause right there. But anyway, so that just goes to show you. Also, yeah, with those pads, I usually like to keep it to where I barely even realize it's there. If you start to be aware this is in the mixing stage, when you start to be aware that that pad is there, it's probably too loud. You want to pull it back just a little bit. All right, it's meant to be almost subconscious most of the time, unless that's a conscious creative decision you want to make. Okay? All right. So now that we've got the arrangement we want, okay, and then, like I said, you go through gain staging. So for instance, let's see if I did anything on here. Okay, I don't have anything listed in here, but I make sure that my raw files are peaking at around -12 dB, like I said. Okay? Some programs have a way where you can do it automatically and you can tell it. Then some programs you just do it manually, where you go in, you listen to each track, you find where the loudest part is, and then you attenuate or lower that gain until that loudest part is -12. Okay? And I'll just show you in case you ever use Logic or you're a Logic person. What I can do is I go here to, let's see where it is, Normalize Region Gain. All right. And first I select all of my tracks, and then I make sure that it's peak. So it finds the peak, and I do individual regions actually. So a track is the whole thing across. A region is this part of the track. that's a region, that's a region, that's a region, just so you know. All right, and then I would switch this down to -12 and then apply. All right, I already did that, so I'm not going to do that with you now. All right, so now comes the creative part of the mix, okay? So this is where we start adding what's going to kind of really help make it shine, okay? So the first thing I like to do is I like to make sure that there's no noise, background noise, at the bottom of that mix, okay? And my son is yelling for his mom. All right, it's all right. But anyway, so I'm going to take his track, and I would put, remember, I like to use something called X noise. This is made by Waves, and it's basically gets rid of that background noise. If you have an air conditioner in the background, if you have some white noise, just the hiss, natural hiss, if you, like he was outside and there were some cars passing by, there was a dog barking, and in the masterclass I mentioned I liked keeping that because it kind of, I thought it was nice to have in the mix, but you might want to take it out, all right, to give that idea that maybe you are in a recording studio even when you're not. So this is what it looks like, all right? And if you remember, what you do is you find a moment of silence and you repeat that over and over. You might loop it, and then you push the learn button and it figures out what that part is, okay? Move this down a little bit. So if this is, let's see if I can find a spot, probably like right here. All right, gonna make that bigger. Okay, if I go right over here, okay, and I'm going to solo this thing. All right, so probably even over here. No, that's not a good spot. I'm going to go more toward the beginning. A lot of times you can find it at the beginning. So I'm going to find this part, and I am going to go ahead and... All right, so it's still pretty loud. Let me pull it back a little bit before he starts to strum. So you can hear that, right? And I mean, this is a very tiny piece, but I do that and I push this learn button, watch. Okay, then I stop. This white line tells you that is where that sound lives, okay? That's that frequency. And you basically want to take anything below that and cut it out, right? Because that's the noise you don't want. So this is where you then move your threshold. So a lot of times threshold is down here, okay? It's at the very bottom, right? And you want to bring it up let's see. There's the learn line. It's that red line. So while you're doing that, I could do it way up there, but then it starts, you'll start to notice and things start sounding a bit glitchy if you go too far to the extreme. So I like to pull mine to about 50 or so. And then my threshold is around 10. Again, sometimes it's a little more, but I'm going to keep mine around 10. I don't want to kill the track or anything. All right. And that just gives it a little bit of subtlety. See, you can't even tell. It's not like it sounds all glitchy now. That's what I like. Some noise gates, they really take out too much sound. You don't have as much flexibility on the smaller amount of frequencies. And so that's what I like about this one. It gives you a little more headroom. Okay, so now that I've cleaned up the track, all right, I might want to do a little bit of EQ. When we're dealing with acoustic guitar, there's usually going to be a little bit more boominess than I want. And again, it's pretty subtle if you recorded it well. And it's just kind of more of a color thing, a taste thing, to get those frequencies away from the bass or even the vocal. If you're going to have either of those, sometimes you want that acoustic guitar to get out of the way so that they're not competing for that frequency and create that little rumble that will overpower in the mix and kind of make it sound a little flat, okay? So we're going to take it here, let's see. And what I did was I attenuated around the frequency of 100 hertz, okay? And that's going to be on the lower end. So you heard that little blip? All right, so that took away some of those low frequencies. I'll play it for you again. It almost sounds like it got softer, which it did. It got a little less powerful because we took some of the energy from that low frequency out, even though we didn't turn the volume down. But that's what it does, and it allows for you to make up for that frequency in other areas where it might be more important, okay? All right, so I did that, and frankly, I liked his voice, so I didn't want to do much to it. Be very, very selective in your EQ for individual tracks. All right, the more you take out, the more energy that you're going to lose. So make sure that if you are adding frequencies, adding EQ in certain frequencies or taking them out, make sure you're doing it with subtlety. Okay, you don't want to do too much. You want it to almost be inaudible. Okay, so we did. We took out the noise. We colored it a little bit with the EQ. All right, and then I finally like to put a compressor on that track. Okay, so remember what a compressor does is a compressor takes those louder sounds and the quieter sounds of the waveform, and it starts to compress them a little bit so that they even out a little bit, right? So an extreme version of compressing would be if you have, if you draw a waveform in the sand, and then you take a comb and just go, whoosh, it really makes it a lot smoother. That's what compression does. But as you can imagine, if you do it too much and you bring all of this, and you bring it and it's all the same, you just yank all of the energy out of that track, right? It takes the dynamic sense out of it, all right? And you want you want personality there. You don't want to take that away from it, right? So you're going to notice when I do this, I don't want this needle to be moving too much, okay? If it's not moving at all, it's not compressing at all. But if it is never hitting zero, then I feel like you're starting to process it too much, and it will come across that way, whether it be conscious or subconscious, okay? I like this right here. This is called the CLA, which stands for Chris Lord-Alge. He is known to be one of the great audio mixers. And so I like to use his because it's simple. All right. It is an analog emulated plugin, means that it is digital, but it is its job is to make its process sound more like it would have if it were an analog compressor in a studio. So, so basically, this knob is what I like to mess with. And if I pull it down here, nothing's gonna happen. And it's as I start to push it up this way is where you're gonna start to see that needle go. And once that needle's going too much or too far, then I pull it back. I don't like it to really do too much beyond -2 or so, okay? All right, so let's see how this works. See, so as of right now, it's not really doing anything, right? I'm gonna
Silence
go up here, where it gets a little bit louder.
were bruised and scarred.
See, so it starts to move a little bit. I'm gonna bump it up a tiny bit. This just takes some of those louder parts and brings them a little more even with the lower parts. See? And I think that looks good right there. Again, I don't like to over-process, okay? Sometimes you might go for that overly processed sound, and that's fine, but that's where you're making a creative decision. But this is more for cleaning up and just getting a good general mix, okay? All right, so we've got his track pretty much where we want it, except now I want to wetten it up a little bit. I want to put some reverb on there, and so I'm going to send it to this reverb over here, which I like to use. This one, Greg Wells, a very respected producer, and has worked with a lot of vocalists, and so he has this plugin, again through Waves, that is specific to voice processing. So basically this has a combination of reverb, some doubling, and some delay. I like to turn the doubling and delay way down. I do like some delay that you can hear it a little bit, but not to where you can hear it in the mix, just where you can maybe hear it alone when it's soloed. And then for this style, I like to put quite a bit of wetness on it. I want it to be aware that Nate has a lot of reverb on his voice. That's just what I'm going for with this specific kind of song. It's a little more anthemic. It's a little more reflective and a little somewhat ambient. So I want that in there. I want us to kind of be out of our heads in almost a different world. Okay? So this is what it sounds like when I add it.
Coffee black and pages turn.
And this is with it on.
Talk is small while you return.
It's not out of control. This is with it back on.
I am here.
Okay. Now again, this was recorded with his iPhone, so eventually he'll hopefully send me just a vocal track that has a little more definition to it. But for right now, I think that's sounding pretty good. All right. Then we start to do the exact same thing to all the instruments. So when you look down here at my mixing board, okay, you're going to see I don't have any noise cancellation on any of the other instruments because they are soft instruments. They are in the computer, they're MIDI, so it doesn't have any unwanted noise in them. So I don't even put the X noise on any of these, okay? But for the piano, a little bit of EQ, a little bit of compression, and this one has a little bit of tape delay just in the effect of it, okay? For the cellos, same thing, a little bit of EQ, a little bit of compression. All right, for it's Friday, it's been a long day, sorry. For the two of the keyboard pads, all right, I use tube EQ, all right. Tube is just kind of like, again, like I'd mentioned before, it's a plugin that is trying to emulate more of that older analog tube sound, all right. But it's just an EQ plugin. And in fact, these are native to Logic. It came with it. I did not pay for it. And so again, just to attenuate some of that low end. All right, for the bass, all right, I just used what they had for this bass, which is the thumb bass right here, kind of a very standard but not in your face bass. Nice. And then some compression, which by the way, on bass, I put more compression on it. I like it to be a lot more even. I do want to take a bit of the definition out. Me personally, just so it evens it out a bit. Otherwise, some of those low frequencies can really get out of control and take over your mix when you don't want it to, okay? And then just a little bit of chorus and excitement on there, just to give it a little more color, almost a slightly wavy feel so that it's not so much in your face. It pulls it back in the mix a little bit, kind of like what Reverb does, all right? Also for bass, I do not like to use Reverb on bass. All right, that's why I use the chorus instead. When you start to use reverb, it really gets muddy. All right, so I leave that out of there. And then on the drums, again, EQ, compression. All right, see, I like to keep it fairly simple if I can, okay? And then I will add some, these are bus sends to reverb, okay? All right, so I have those. And let me just, so now I'm starting to turn on all of the plugins. All right. I'm still going to leave my mastering chain off for right now. Okay. So again, this is just the initial mix. So now let's start to listen to what this sounds like now that I have put everything together and it's starting to come together. This is also when I started to, you can tell with the sliders, this is where I was starting to bump things, pull things down once I had all the effects on them. Okay? All right, let's take a listen.
Coffee black and pages turn. Talk is small while you return. And I am here. I am here. The journey's long
bass is a lot more even now. Everything is gelled together because of taking some of the frequencies out of the EQ, adding them in the bass. That's where we made up for it. Notice how now the pads are not overpowering in the mix. Right, and then the drums are going to start to come in. See, and I really wanted the drums to not be the focal point. So they're back in the mix. It's very just brushy. Right, all right, it's very nice. Pause there. Okay, so now I will very quickly tell you what I do for my mastering chain, all right? So basically, what you do is when you have your mix, which is what we just finished, okay, there's one more stage to in order to get it to that finished product, that mastered product, all right? So basically, you have a pre-master, which is what we just did, all right? And that pre-master is where you do everything, to make everything even and give it kind of that feel that you want, right? Then you get to the mastering stage. Most people will take their pre-master to a specific mastering studio or just to somebody who has a fresh pair of ears on it, because then they'll give a little bit more of an unbiased take on it, okay? But we can't always afford that, can we? And so it's always good to kind of know generally how to do this, all right? So mastering is basically where you're going to bump up the volume to more of a marketable level. Everybody likes it loud, right? Okay, and to an extent, I get it. But there's a way to do it to where you make it loud, but you don't kill the vibe, right? Like I said before, if you're compressing it like crazy, all right, that's going to just kill the dynamic value of it. And so mastering is the same way. So you want to make sure that you don't overdo this, okay? So first of all, when you are sending a mastering engineer, when you are sending them a mix, I'm going to get to one of the louder parts, all right? And I want you to notice right over here is my master fader. And I want you to notice it does not get up close to zero, okay? Watch this. See that? See, that's staying on -4.5, and it doesn't go above that. I'm leaving headroom so that they have some space to do their work, okay? All right, so, and basically the way to do that is when you're listening, you might have everything. It's like, okay, now it sounds good. And then all of a sudden you go to the master fader and it's just bumping into the red and it's going above zero and it's peaking like crazy. That's where you take everything and you pull them all down together. The mix is coming down together until you leave some headroom. Some people like to leave the headroom at around -3. Some people like to leave it around -6. Some like to leave it around even down to -12. All right. So I like to keep mine around -6. I know it's a little hot here at 4.5, but that's all right. And so once it's there, that's where you don't want anything louder than that. That gives them some room to bring it up to 0 in the proper way. Okay? All right, so here is my mastering chain right over here. So again, I do some very subtle EQ at the end. And this EQ, look right here. All I'm doing is pulling down the extreme lows and the extreme highs. I just like to get rid of them in case, all right? They're pretty much inaudible, all right? So those are things that you wouldn't miss, but it's gonna allow for maybe some energy that was being taken away by those extreme frequencies. Just make sure they're out of there, okay? The next thing I like to do is, this is kind of cool, and this is just an extra thing. I also, from Waves, Greg Wells, who had the vocal reverb suite, he also has one just for a general mix, and it kind of brightens the whole mix up, okay? And so why don't I play this spot for you, and I will toggle this on and off so you can hear. That brought it way out. Here's it without it. With. All right. yes, it brings the volume up, but it's not really necessarily bringing the volume up. It's taking some of those frequencies that got a little lost and it's just bringing them out, okay? And I don't go extreme on it. This one's quite a bit. A lot of times I'll stay here, but I just pushed it a little bit for this project, okay? All right, so I've got that on. This is a tape emulator, so it gives it a little more of that old analog feel to it. And so I like to put a little bit of this on there. This is very much optional, okay? This one, it's a little more subtle to hear, okay? So I'll try this one and toggle this on and off. See, it's very subtle. Okay, but then we get into these two, which are very important, okay? I have the final compressor, which I have this. This is on the entire mix. So I've been putting compressors on all of the individual tracks, but now I have a compressor on the entire mix, okay? And this is, again, it's just gonna take some of those extreme parts that were maybe getting a little out of control, all right? And it's just gonna even it out a little bit. It's gonna take that subtle comb over it. Okay, and so this is where a comb over is a good thing. All right, so but you're gonna notice over here when I play it, all right, it is very subtle. This is not peaking, this is not taking that needle very far at all. It's just cleaning up, okay? All right, again, I'll toggle it, start with it with off, okay? Here we go.
Journey's long,
Right there.
we've traveled.
You gotta really watch closely. Subtle. Okay? And so finally, all right, because you're gonna notice now, look what that did. Look at the master. It bumped it up above 0 to 1.5 because it made it louder. That's part of what a compressor does. It takes some of those lower parts and brings them up. Okay? So now we need to level that off. So now we use a limiter. Okay? A limiter is like an extreme version of a compressor, okay? And so this limiter we're gonna put on here, and so I'm basically going to set it to where, number one, I'm not gonna let anything hit 0. Everything's gonna be to -0.1, just below the threshold, okay? And then you mess with the threshold here, just based on to where all you're seeing are just little peaks here and there. If you see this right here, the attenuation meter, if this is constantly red the whole time, you need to pull back on that because, again, that is taking away the dynamic value, okay? You want to have that personality in there. All right, so watch. This is what mine looks like.
Journey's long,
So notice, it doesn't go above. Keeps it at that safe level, and I don't have too much rev. See that? Every once in a while you'll see it. Those are the parts that would normally peak, but it limits it, brings it down in a way you don't really hear it. It kind of just rolls off.
I don't know what to say. Patterns coming.
So that's kind of my process. That's what I do. All right, I'm gonna pause it right there. So basically, that's what we've got. That's pretty much my process for mixing and even into the master. So again, all of this stuff is optional. This is my approach. What I feel has brought some good mixes that clients and colleagues have felt were some of my better works. Okay, and so. One of the biggest things that I will suggest to you is get as many ears on it as you possibly can and take that criticism, all right? That's how you're gonna get better. I still send things to people and get plenty of things back where they say, "Ooh, did you listen to this part right here? You know, I maybe would have done this a little less, or I would have done more of this." We all do it. It doesn't matter what level that you are in the industry, okay, or in the art form. So I hope that helps. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to to hear from you all and answer anything more in depth that you might want to know about. I also would love to know your opinions as well. Maybe you would do something differently, and I'm always learning. You know, we're all students here. So, but anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you next time, and goodbye. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that and that it was informative for you. Again, if you have any questions or suggestions, please go for it in the comments. Go ahead and push that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys next time. See ya.